Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I've been sitting here, man. I'm wasting content. I've been sitting here debating this post that Shaq just put up, and I think I've looked at the players long enough to know who was there. Okay, so I'm gonna try to round off the names as I see it. You got Joel Embiid, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you got Jason Tatum, and you got who's that last face on the end? Luka Doncic. All right, so that's what you're looking at is the representatives of the 2023 era. And with the '02 era, you got Shaq, Kobe, Timmy, KG, and who was that last face I saw? Tracy McGrady, T Mac. All right, and so the FanDuel was suggesting, to all of us to go and vote on the poll in regards to who we thought would be able to win a series. I believe it was a 7-game series. I think that's how they worded it. I don't remember. But nevertheless, I'm going to tell you guys that it would be the best of 7 just to make it make more sense to me. To be honest with you, I think that's a sweep. I do, man. I don't think this old school team is going to have much trouble with the new school guys that were listed there. But my thing was, I can come up with a team that I think is a little more equipped to go up against that team, but I still don't think they're gonna beat them. It's like I would remove Joel and put Jokic there, and then I started going into who I would otherwise move. I like Shea being there. I like Doncic being there, but JT Money, I was trying to go back and forth if I really want Jason Tatum on that team, and it went into a space where I was trying to more or less determine how I view Jason Tatum at this stage in his career. That's kind of where it took me. And so that's where my mind is at. It's like, is Jason Tatum one of those leading guys that I would put on a team representing this era at this point? As many teams as he's represented being, successful in the playoffs, you think immediately, yeah, probably he's the leading guy who's been in the Eastern Conference Finals, 3 times, been to the finals once now. So, that's kind of where I'm leaving off at in regards to my thought. It was like, yeah, I'm trying to psych myself into saying he probably should be the representative, I guess. But then I'm like, okay, well, are there some other guys that may better represent this era that I'm not thinking about? And it's like, Jimmy Butler now need to be in that list for the same reason. You consider all of the success that he's had with the Heat. I mean, they've been to a finals now, 3 Eastern Conference Finals, just the same. And when you consider he's done it with a lot less, if you value the overall talent level of the Miami Heat differently than you do the Celtics, maybe you think that the Celtics have a little more talent. And so it's like, shouldn't Jimmy be there instead of JT Money? Or maybe you slip someone else out, have them both on the list. I don't know if Jimmy has given you enough from his own specific standpoint as an individual player to where you say, oh, he's up there with some of those names. But then again, it's like maybe it's just because we haven't talked enough about him, that kind of thing. And then it goes into another conversation. It's like, all right, this era, just in terms of looking back at what we were just discussing about those 2 eras and these 2 teams, this era's representatives don't generally play defense. I think Giannis, for me, is the only mismatch there. You ask the old school team how are they going to defend Giannis. You put Tim Duncan or KG on him. How are you doing that? Does it matter if he's going to be met at the rim by Shaquille anyway? So these are things that I'm just wondering about in regards to the 2 matchups there. But, all in all, I don't think it would be close because I think only one of those teams would be playing both sides of the floor. The new school team, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, solid defensive player, but it's going to be tough for him to have any success against a guy like T-Mac if you're going to match him up there. I probably swap those matchups, make him go up against Kobe. Still going to be tough. Kobe's going to be playing defense. It's going to try to lock him up. You know how that goes. If you watch enough Kobe Bryant, you already know how he is. The better the player, the more intent he's going to play defensively. He's going to make it his business to learn everything you do, and he's going to try to shut you down. Now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a very talented player, and I think he's going to develop into something very special. But as far as trying to have him match up against Kobe Bryant, it's not fair at all to try to look at those matchups there. And then you look at T-Mac and Luka Doncic, obviously I look at Luka Doncic as the greater player of the two. I do, but the problem is Luka's not going to defend, and you're going to need to against T-Mac. That's the problem. If you don't defend T-Mac, he's going for 50 and you're out of here. He could beat you himself. And so that's really how that goes. Jokic is going to Doncic is going to make people better, obviously. He's going to do everything that he does in terms of shooting the ball and stretching the floor. I think T-Mac could arguably be the best three-point shooter for the old school team when you consider the two teams. And ultimately, that's where they would be lacking. But KG has a fantastic 20-foot jumper. Tim Duncan has hit three-point shots at the buzzer to almost win playoff games, if not for .4. I'll never forget some of the shots that Tim Duncan hit. So you know he can shoot the three. That's not an issue. He didn't necessarily find himself being known as a three-point shooter, but I've seen him hit so many back-breaking threes till I know better than not. Consider him somebody who's going to stretch the floor just because he didn't come out there too much. And that's the thing about a guy like Tim Duncan. You start looking back on their careers, it's like, yeah, he wasn't necessarily a three-point shooter, but dang it if he didn't win rings hitting three-point shots. One of the best defensive players to ever play. I think Tim Duncan is underrated historically. I think there are people that are considered better than him that he was better than, and I think that it was proven. It was really proven. I think he benefited a lot from a system, though, that stayed consistent throughout the course of his career. Obviously having Popovich the whole time, having a Hall of Famer surrounding him the whole time, key role players at all times. So you saw the stability of their system never waver. But their championship success was ultimately attached to his presence. And so they didn't win nothing not without him. And I just look at him as one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and probably greater than some of the names that came ahead of him. And so that's how I remember Tim Duncan. He was the cream of the crop. And if it wasn't for Shaq and Kobe, he probably would have had about 9 rings or something like that throughout the course of his tenure. I mean, the only thing really standing in his way was our greatness, honestly. And so that's where it comes down to you shifting over and looking at who else is on the team, which is Shaq and Kobe. And, you know, for the new school, it's hard for them to kind of wrap their head around, somebody being more, I guess, competitive or ferocious in intent than the guys that they're staring at, because they have so much respect for what's in front of them and no understanding of what they didn't see, just like how it always is with every generation. But when you get a chance to have lived to see both generations head on, you understand the difference in intensity and competitiveness and physicality, obviously in rules. And so the rules make up a lot of what it is that it's been known to be conditioning for these athletes. They don't come in thinking they can do certain things to begin with, so they don't try. And rather, it would have to be an adjustment for the new guys to try to come in and play their game just the same. So you have to ask yourself about what rules would be in place for what this game would ultimately be. But, at the end of the day, there are certain evolutions about the game that you cannot take for granted when considering spacing and shooting and efficiency and athleticism, evolution. Those things have to take into account when you're pairing against two different eras. But what I can say is, when looking at this pair of individuals that they've chosen to put up against each other with FanDuel here, Shaq's physicality is going to overpower anything that the other side is going to provide in that situation, in my humble opinion. Granted, Giannis is going to have his strengths, but at the end of the day, Giannis would be, believe it or not, too small to deal with Shaquille. As somebody who watched Shaquille at length throughout the course of his prime, and as somebody who's now seen Giannis at his best in the finals and stuff like that, I'm telling you that Giannis, with that injury that he just had, that back injury would have come right against Shaquille. That injury would have taken place against that player. His physicality would not match Shaquille's. Not at all, dude. I've watched Shaquille push grown 7-foot men, 260-pound men to the ground after dunking on them, dude, repeatedly, and that type of thing. And he never let up on his approach. His motor ran high. When we watch guys that have come into the Laker uniform after Shaquille came, it became frustrating for us to watch them without motor. That's why we took well to Andrew Bynum, because he seemed to have that motor immediately to attack the rim and attack Shaq himself against the Heat that time. And we remember those things. So when we had Players like Anthony Davis come in who don't necessarily have the motor, even though they have the greatness. Or a guy like Pau Gasol who didn't necessarily have the motor but provided the greatness. It was hard for us to take to him right away because we're used to that of ferociousness. And that's what's missing from the game today. That's what a guy like Cam Whitmore may be bringing into the game, and a guy like Zion Williamson may be bringing to the game. Why we love Giannis so much is because they attack the rim the way that these guys do. And Shaq is by far the most ferocious one of these individuals that the game has ever seen. The way that his size was on him, the way he carried his size and his arm length coupled with his speed and his ability to have control over his hips, when he spinned off of you and dunked the ball with two hands, it could potentially bring down the entire backboard. You know, the backboard was swayed 2 plays later off of dunks that he had. You know, I never forget the sound of his arms smashing against the rim live when you're actually there at not Madison Square Garden, but at the Great Western Forum back in the day. You used to hear that sound when he pulled down the rim. Like, it was nothing like it. And so people, you know, in today's era, if you're seeing Giannis dunk the ball, or if you're seeing Paolo dunk the ball, or maybe you're seeing something special with Zion, you got to understand there's another level. There's another level, and I've seen it. And so when you're considering these two teams that we're talking about trying to go against each other, I'm telling you that the new school team would not have any chance against Shaquille O'Neal. No chance, bro. They're not ready for that type of physicality. Nothing like that exists. It's like standing in front of a truck and he's keeping at you. It's not like he's going to slow down. His personality is to attack. Go back and watch that game he had against the Clippers on his birthday. I think it was in year, probably like '08, maybe earlier. Who knows? 90. I don't know what the hell year it was, 99 or something like that. But it was his birthday, anywhere between 99 and '08. So obviously it was in his tenure when he was in his great days. So I'd trying to zero it in. Probably in like '01 or something like that, his birthday. Just to stop joking around. But check around that time. He had a game against the Clippers where he went for 61 points, and that would epitomize his ferociousness when he's intent on embarrassing another team and allowing himself to just kind of run amok out there. And just continue to give him the ball, and he just continues to dunk it. Dunk. And then on the other side, he's playing defense. It's not like he's a guy that's just looking around and doing nothing. Nah, he's switching off on people. He's looking for the weak side. He's getting offensive, defensive rebounds, boxing out. I mean, he didn't miss on situations. He made passes. He was a fantastic passer. And so that's what you had to deal with Shaquille. It was no, maybe we send a double team. Nah, you're sending like 4 people at him on every play. He's not going to allow you to put one person on him. He's going to embarrass that person repeatedly. Good defender, bad defender, great defender. Didn't matter. They're getting killed. And so that's how it was with Shaq. So I look at a guy like Joel Embiid and his personality and the way that he likes to play. Shaq is gonna do a lot of bad there. Now Joel's gonna get his pound of flesh because he's a great player. He's gonna get his off, but the type of demoralization that Shaq is gonna look to punish him with, I've already seen how he handles that. Like, that wouldn't work. And so with respect to Joel in his game, I'm telling you, man, that's gonna be different for you, and that's for me is why I'm removing Joel from this if I'm FanDuel, and I'm bringing in someone else by the name of Nikola Jokic to better represent this particular era, because I honestly believe that Jokic would handle this situation a little bit better. For one, of course he's not stopping Shaq, but he has a different demeanor, and I think we're going to see that in the finals as he probably wins his first championship. But he's a guy who's going to make Shaq work in different ways, and he's heavy as heck too. So Shaq's going to have to deal with him as well in other ways that can be a little different. Of course, Joel can as well, but I just look at Joel as somebody who's going to kind of, he's not going to take well to Shaq's aggressiveness. He's just not going to take well to it. That's what I think of Joel, honestly. I just seen him, I'm not going to say the word coward because that's not the way I describe it, but just more so not meet that type of aggressiveness when it's time to. Versus Shaquille O'Neal, who, as a bad free throw shooter, doesn't miss free throws when it matters the most. You see what I'm saying? When you got that type of mental, going up against a guy like Joel, who's he's probably not going to play because his stomach kind of hurt. I'm telling you, like Shaq's playing through a foot injury. Shaq's playing, nah. And he's got beef with his teammate Kobe at the same time. So it's like he's going to take that out on you, and it's going to be bad for you. And so that's the dynamic that you see with this team. And then it's like, so I don't see no way that their new school team, with all the greatness that they're going to bring to the table, is going to have any success against the style that the old school team's going to bring to the table. When I think about some of the mentality traits that are going to be brought to the table versus what I've seen from some of these new school guys, who I just don't think would be able to meet them there. They wouldn't be able to meet those guys there. When they start dealing with a Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, it's going to be a chess game that the new school is probably just not going to win. That's what I see happening down there. Stuff like that. And so maybe efficiency. If you want to give the new school a shot, I'd say it was because Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, and Joel Embiid couldn't miss a three. And the new school team, and the old school team rather, would not be able to keep up with that scoring. That would be the best, scoring drought maybe. Trying to figure out how to get all those non-ball handlers to be cohesive. Maybe that can be your best bet at hoping that you would have some success against the old school. That maybe Kobe would overshoot. T-Mac and Kobe would never get anybody else the ball. Maybe you hope that'd be the thing. Problem is, this is what I understand. You put the ball in Tim Duncan's hands. He's going to facilitate everything for everybody. Kobe will side facilitate because he later became a player who could do that, depending on which era Kobe we're talking about. We're talking about 02, first championship. It didn't matter. He's still killing you the way he did. He didn't pass too much, but he didn't miss much either, and he defended on the other side, etc. And then Shaq was down there just putting all the pressure on the rim anyone would ever want. So, yeah, man, that rim pressure opens up any other situations that would otherwise be a problem. And because of it, I don't think the new school would win a single game. Not one single game. I really don't see it. I don't see them winning a single game. So, that's what I wanted to break down, man. I was going through the process of literally making that conversation happen 15 minutes before I even started the video, and realized that was content for you guys, not just for myself. So yeah, man, I've been doing a lot of basketball homework. Of course, I did a draft video earlier in the 17 range that the Lakers would likely have opportunity to draft with if they keep the pick. So go check that video out that I made a couple hours ago. I enjoyed it, and I hope you all do as well. And that pretty much concludes this aspect of my day. I just wanted to come here and just give you a little bit of that. New school versus old school in general. I think the old school, as it pertains to the era that I grew up in, they're likely going to be more equipped to adapt to the new school rules, and then from there beat the new school guys. Then the new school guys, going back to that physical era, dealing with all those guys that only focused on basketball and focused on beating their opponent. It's a lot more distractions in this era, a lot more to pay attention to that can deviate from what it is that them dudes would be focused on back then. It wasn't nothing to focus on but what was in front of them back then a lot of the time, and them dudes were very much focused on it. So I think the details of the game has kind of been lost a little bit as it pertains to the focus and the intentions of competitiveness. I think there's more money to be made, so there's more likelihood people are willing to just kind of chill as opposed to going all out, playing through injury, stuff like that. Those guys were likely more so willing to put themselves through hell to get a victory than I think the new school would ever even think to be. And that's why I would go with the old school more so. They're just going to be more hungry, bro. Raw, from a raw time where you didn't have to be kind to everybody and it wasn't encouraged to you. So that kind of thing. I just think you're going to be much more likely to see more of a nasty competitiveness than what you're going to see in this era where they spank everybody for even giving you one little tap on the wrist, a little foul. It's flagrant. Like back then, you sock a guy in the head and maybe it's a technical. That kind of thing. You're just likely to see more focus, I think, back then when you got that coming up against you. So that's what I like about my old school guys, even though, to be honest with you, Timmy wasn't like that. KG wasn't like that. Kobe would get in a fight with you. Shaq would get in a fight with you. But they weren't really fighters like that. So yeah, T-Mac, they weren't fighters, not like that. But the era they were from, yes. So that's kind of how I look at that. And also, one more thing. I'm not sure how good Shea is. That's what I'll say about this list. He's the one guy that I'm like, depending on how good he is, will determine how much of a chance I think they actually have. Because if he elevates to a certain level, then I have to look at the team different. So he's the one question mark. I think I know who Luka is. Pretty certain I know who Jason Tatum is, Joel Embiid, Giannis. But he's the one I'm like, so if his elevator goes all the way up, then who knows? Who knows how much he tethers this conversation himself. So that's what I got to say. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.